Is this working? Yeah. Well, thanks, Francisco. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I have to say that I'm coordinating this initiative on behalf of MINECO, which is the Ministry for Economy and Competitiveness in the government of Spain, which holds the research portfolio, right? So let me just start with this thing. Well, joint programming for dummies. Well, yeah. There are so many initiatives going on nowadays with the European Commission and the European constellation that it's very complicated to explain each and every one of them and to have an understanding of it. These are the days in which every random combination of 3 letters that you can think of is going to work in the European terms: JPI, EPA, EIP. So the map of these initiatives will eventually get clear, and we will have an understanding of what is going on. So my talk today is about fixing a few ideas, a few general lines of action about these joint programming things, right? So this is as a recognition of the contribution of the United States to literature in the 20th century with all these stupid books about something for dummies. I'm going to be presenting this initiative for those of us like myself who don't understand much about this thing, right? So joint programming is about coordinating, some people say aligning, but this is a complicated wording, the national, regional, public in general terms, research development and innovation programs in Europe. So it is true that there is wide space for making more with less or with the same in terms of the European funding agencies in the hands of the member states, the associated countries, the regions. There's many layers of research and innovation funding nowadays. So the idea is to coordinate, to do things together, to progress in living together, to progress in pooling resources, and who knows what we will be able to do in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, right? So maybe we grow to build something which could eventually be called the federation of these agencies, and we can do things together under co-decision, as they say in Brussels. So, but in the meantime, we're just dating and trying to do things together. We are not an ERANET. We are not the ERANETs. Some of you may know are projects with a fixed lifetime, right? Which coordinate resources on specific topics, and they come to life, and one day they disappear. Our initiative does not have an ending date. We may end in a few years' time, but we don't have an ending date. Joint programming has been driven by the European Union, but as they say, this is an initiative in the hands of the partner states and the member states and the associated countries. So in other words, we should not be able to find their fingerprints in it. Starting in 2008, by a communication on joint programming, a number of joint programming initiatives are evolving. And these initiatives respond or need to respond to European challenges, not to research problems, not to industry requirements, but to societal challenges. And the process to come up with the definition of these challenges was a bottom-up process. It was very creative / confusing for a few years, because different countries and groups of countries were coming up with different ideas. Out of this process, by 2010, it was clear that 10 ideas could remain in this oven of joint programming, and one of them is water. This initiative was proposed by Spain, and it's currently coordinated by Spain and by the Netherlands, right? We may take a look at who we are today, and see, I didn't actually introduce one of the magic words in joint programming, which is variable geometry, like many actions that the European Union is embracing these days. And what this means is that, hey, you don't have to be there if you don't want to. So the idea is that countries and regions team up for coordinating the resources in the way they find most appropriate. So we've been inviting countries in political Europe and associated countries, and this is the response we have found so far. We have a partnership which is composed of 18 countries, plus the European Commission, which wants to be a little bit outside of this process, and there are 5 observer countries. This, according to the membership, the partnership, this is one of the largest in the 10 joint programming initiatives, and not only that, we also have a very good geographic coverage, right? East, north, south, east, west, meaning that we should be having a balanced idea about this challenge. Because everything we do in these joint programming initiatives needs to have a European dimension, so we cannot concentrate on specific geographic aspects of the problem. So, good geographic coverage, and the following 4 slides will give you an indication of the complexity in this task, because these are review of the agencies, ministries, whatever, managing the public research portfolio in these 18 member states, right? And you can see that in some countries the situation is complex in terms of the number of agencies or actors involved, right? Whereas in others, the situation is simpler, right? It all depends on how its government envisages water research and innovation, right? And there are very wide differences, with, for instance, Spain being standing almost by itself in the sense that there has been a policy for unifying research and innovation under the same ministry in the last 10, 20 years. No? The only thing is that the name of the ministry has changed like 5 times in that time period, but hey, nobody's perfect, I guess. So a very complex situation in terms of the coordination we have to do. Now, the first thing we were requested to do in this joint programming initiative was to develop a vision, right? A vision of the societal challenge. We have not yet introduced science or innovation. We're still far away from it. So we got together and we came up with this challenge there, which is, I'm going to read it. Achieving sustainable water systems for a sustainable economy in Europe and abroad. So, just like in any other European initiative or statement, everywhere there has been measured and balanced and weighted a couple of times. And sustainability is important. The concept of a system is very important also, because it relates to the issues that we are concerned about. Then economy, although we are no longer very much believers on economy, but hey, it remains there for the time being. And then the issue of Europe and abroad. When we talk about water, it's very difficult to concentrate just on European water. There are many reasons for which we want to concentrate also on the things that happen outside Europe. We are dealing with scientific knowledge which is anywhere nowadays. We want to cooperate with the best scientists and technologists, wherever they are. The companies we are interacting with have their markets anywhere. We have most of the large corporations dealing with water in Europe are strongly multinational, and they're making money outside more than they are inside these days. So and then there is the issue of international cooperation also, because it's linked to sustainable development. So there are many reasons why we want to consider the whole of the world within this European initiative. Our objectives are, then again, not scientific. We are not an initiative concerned with science. We are an initiative concerned with managing research and innovation, right? So the first thing we want to do is to have a permanent link to end users. The second one is to attain a critical mass of research programs. The third one is to coordinate European research, development, and innovation in an effective, sustainable way. And then two very applied objectives. The first one is to harmonizing the national and regional, where applicable, research, development, and innovation agendas, making sure that we don't duplicate, that we don't compete, that we don't overlap, verbs which are very European by definition, right? And instead, we spread this cooperation layer and see if it works. Then there is the issue of doing things together. And these are the activities that we want to develop. And we have committed to engage in joint programming 20% of the funds that partner institutions devote to research and innovation. And finally, we have analyzed the situation. We have declared European leadership in science and in some aspects of innovation also in Europe, and we want to sustain it. We don't need to push the European sector to leadership, because that's where they are established, but we need to contribute to sustaining them there, because the challenge created by incumbents is extremely strong nowadays. Now, these objectives are timed, and they are timed for 2020. So, it's, 7 years to go, and we are getting busy. So, and now we get a little bit into research. We have to develop a strategic research and innovation agenda, right? And we are currently doing that by answering these 5 research questions, right? Which address the sustainability of ecosystems, which address urban water systems, the water industry as a water consumer, as a water polluter, as a water transforming industry. Then we need to contribute to the implementation of the bioeconomy, squeezing in the European water consumptive arena crops for non-food applications, in addition to sustaining the food applications that we know. I mean, the European Union has been investing thousands of euros on issues of like biorefineries, biofarming. Now, all this needs plenty of biomass that needs to be produced primarily, but not only, but primarily with water. So our water balances are complicated enough nowadays, and we need to see how to reconcile all this. And finally, and related to this quantitative analysis, which is growing importance in Europe, closing the water cycle gap. So this is the layout of the objectives and the questions. And as I say, these 5 questions are evolving into an agenda which we need to discuss in the light of the national water agendas too. The governance. We have established a governance model which is laid out there in terms of program owners, ministries, managers, agencies, executing bodies for research funding, advisory boards, and we have a scientific and technological board, and we have a stakeholder advisory group, and then a secretariat. This is how we work. So far, we've been doing this with contribution in kind by member states, but since January 1st, we count on the contribution of the European Commission for these basal arrangements. We have been seeing some of the results of this mapping we did for research and innovation on water in Europe by the member states. So we have heard about these figures, which amount to the fact that today, 88% of the euros invested by member states and associated countries in water research and innovation are within the remit of the Joint Programming Initiative. So this means that we have already attained one of the objectives we had for 2020, because we can now speak with the voice of the European funding of research and innovation. We are qualified. Now, establishing a single voice in such a varied, diverse scenario of funding agencies is still a complication, and we're working on it. These 370 million euro that member states and associated countries are spending on water is a very important finding, and we are refining it through a new mapping. But see, the challenge is that we have committed that in 7 years' time, we will be running a program funding research and innovation on water for about 20% of that, which is more than 70 million euro a year. And that's a very large operation. It's a very scary situation, but at the same time, this is our ambition, and we cannot afford to do less. Because if the size of this joint programming program was smaller, as we say in Spanish, para ese viaje no hace falta alforjas. Very difficult to translate, but meaning that we wouldn't bother, right? Meaning that we need to have a certain volume to justify the enormous cost of this development in the past and in the coming years in order to build this coordination. So there's a critical level of operation that we need to attain, and if not, so thank you very much. So what are we doing these days? We are stressing external communication. We had a very large info day in December in Madrid in order to promote this idea among the research and innovation community, because we are going to be having our first call this year. We are publishing in a few months, so we need everybody to be informed via newsletter, via web page. So there's a number of media elements that we're using for this. And just a few words about the, oh, I see a red sign now.
Both of them.
Oh, the red and the yellow. That means stop right now. And this is the coordination and support action, which is supporting our operation. And things are coming. We are delivering, and we expect you to hear from us in terms of calls and in terms of joint activities by summer. Well, thank you very much.